In this video, we're going to cover some of the burials that took place at Mount Vernon. Well, hello there, Parapeeps, and welcome to another episode of Our Haunted Travels. I am your host, Sean Donnelly.
And I'm your co-host, Marianne Donnelly.
Like I said, we've already covered the history in yesterday's video. I'll put a link at the end if you want to go check that out. So we got some more information about the burials at Mount Vernon.
That's right. There are several burials at Mount Vernon, you could say.
Yeah. But if you are into the paranormal, history, and forensic type videos,
make sure you hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to ding that little bell so you'll hear from us next time we put out a new video.
So we are talking about Panic D number 1861. That is George Washington's Mount Vernon. It is located at 3200 Mount Vernon Memorial Highway, Mount Vernon.
That's right. Mount Vernon Memorial Highway in Mount Vernon, Virginia.
Yeah, and it is open to the public.
That's right. It's open to the public every single day of the year. It's not closed any days.
Not publicly owned, by the way.
No, it is currently privately owned, but they do open it up for tours and visitation every single day of the year, just as George Washington would have liked.
Very cool location. So we have some stuff. Normally at this point we do the history, but we did the history in the research photos. So I'll put a link to that. Ding! If you want to go check that out. Marianne did the history dating back all the way to 1600s about this property. It's actually some pretty cool stuff. I was joking in that video about how long it is. It is quite long, but if you want to know the history of Mount Vernon, she covered everything. Absolutely everything.
Well, not everything. There's certainly more to details that I did not include.
Oh, okay. But anyways, in this video, we're going to talk about the burials.
That's right.
All right? So go ahead and take a look at that, and we're going to come back and get some more stuff to tell you about.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go.
The burials at Mount Vernon. Between 50 and 75 people are buried in the enslaved burial ground. Some say even up to 150. The individual graves, however, are not marked, and this burial ground can be found just about 50 yards from the tomb of George Washington himself, right there on Mount Vernon's grounds. On December 14th of 1799, George Washington died. He requested that he not be placed in the family vault that sat on the grounds until at least 3 days had passed, just in case he wasn't dead. He was laid out in a mahogany casket in the new room of the mansion during this time. Strangely enough, William Thornton, a physician and friend of the family, was invited to Mount Vernon to see if he could help while Washington was sick. Washington, however, died before his arrival, and Thornton proposed to attempt to restore him back to life, first by thawing him in cold water, then laying him in blankets, and by friction, giving him warmth to put activity back in the blood vessels. At the same time, he was going to open a passage to the lungs through the trachea and inflate them with air to produce artificial respiration. And finally, he was going to transfuse blood into him from a lamb. He figured that if Washington died by blood loss and the need for oxygen, if he were to restore these and the heat which he would lose after his death, he just might be able to bring him back to life. This was not permitted, though, and his body was placed into the mahogany casket that was lined with lead and placed in an oak box covered by a black material. Ingle and McMahon cabinet makers were tasked with building Washington's casket. The Ingalls billed the Washington's estate $99.25 for the casket, with engraved silver plates and furnished with black lace handles and a covered case with lifters, as well as hiring a coach, a bier, and, of course, the horse for delivery. On December 18th of 1799, a funeral was held at Mount Vernon, and Washington's body was interred there in accordance with his will in a family crypt that had been built on the estate prior to this time. The old family vault was arched with freestone and over this a deep sod. It sits about 250 yards south of the mansion and was improperly situated as it was too close to the river and in disrepair by 1799. So Washington's will also requested that a new, larger tomb be built. The old tomb was just prone to flooding damage, and it caused 30 or so wooden coffins to rot through over the years. There were even bare bones on the ground, and President Washington's coffin was placed in this originally, but it was laid on a wooden table to keep the water away. His wishes for a new vault were not executed, though, until 1831, and this was only when an unsuccessful attempt was made to steal his skull. John Washington II eventually inherited Mount Vernon and fired one of the men who tended the grounds. This guy just happened to decide to take his revenge out on Washington by breaking into the tomb and trying to steal George Washington's head. He got one of Bushrod Washington's in-laws' skulls by mistake, though, and he was later caught. At the time of his death in December of 1799, Congress passed a joint resolution to construct a marble monument at the United States Capitol for Washington's body. Now, Martha supported this, and under the suggestion of Thornton, this is why Washington's body was enclosed in a leaded coffin. A joint congressional committee in early 1832 debated the removal of Washington's body from Mount Vernon to a crypt in the Capitol that was built by Charles Bulfinch in the 1820s, but the Southerners opposed this. There was a rift already beginning between the North and the South, and the Southerners opposed this so much that Congressman Wiley Thompson of Georgia actually said, "Remove the remains of our venerated Washington from their association with the remains of his consort and his ancestors from Mount Vernon, and from his native state deposit them in this capital, and then let a severance of the Union occur, and behold the remains of Washington on a shore foreign to his native soil." His remains weren't moved from Mount Vernon. In fact, the body was moved to its new vault on the property that he had requested in 1831. The new tomb is 100 yards west of the old vault, and the vault is arched over 8 feet high and has a rough cast front and a plain iron door with a freestone casement. The vault sits beyond the antechamber and is where the body laid from its completion in 1831 until the sarcophagus that he is now placed in was completed in 1837. Other members of the Washington family were moved and interred into the inner vault, which is behind the antechamber today, which has, of course, the sarcophagi of both George and Martha Washington. Washington and his wife were entombed in sarcophagi in the antechamber of the entrance of the new vault and is now visible from the outside. This was done for the president on October 7th of 1837, and Martha a couple years later after a sarcophagus was made for her as well. The sarcophagus for President Washington was created when it was determined that his coffin was not faring well and had been fixed multiple times already. It was just all tattered. Mr. John Struthers constructed the marble sarcophagus to enshrine these remains based on a design by William Strickland. He made the sarcophagus from Pennsylvania marble that was a solid block of marble 8 feet in length, 3 feet in width, and 2 feet high. The lid or covering stone was made of a block of Italian marble. On this was carved arms of the insignia of the United States, a shield divided into 13 perpendicular stripes, which rests on a flag attached by cords to a spear embellished with tassels. The crest is an eagle with open wings perching on the top bar of the shield, and in an act, clutching arrows and an olive branch. Between the design and the foot of the coffin is the name Washington. When the sarcophagus was ready, the outer coffin case, which was much decayed, was stripped off, and it was noticed that the lead of the lid had sunk considerably from head to foot and formed a curved line 4 to 5 inches the whole length of the coffin. This had caused the soldering of the joints to give way on the upper part of the coffin lid. This was restored, and the body allegedly viewed at this time. Some indicated they saw it, others said it was just a small hole and they really couldn't see anything. Nonetheless, it was carried by 6 men and laid in the marble sarcophagus, where it was sealed with cement on Saturday, October 7, 1837. When the wooden case was removed from the coffin, a silver breastplate was found, indicating George Washington, born February 22, 1732, died December 14, 1799. This plate was placed in the marble sarcophagus with his coffin. Originally, the sarcophagus was to be placed in the vault, but seeing difficulty in getting it into the vault because it was just too big to fit through the door, a plan for constructing a foundation at the entrance of the gate on the outside of the vault between it and the surrounding walls was made. The antechamber was built around the sarcophagus and was covered by a metallic roof. Its walls are 12 feet high and is built of brick. Its front has a gate and a pointed Gothic arch. The gate is composed of iron bars, and over the gate are inscribed the words, "Within this enclosure rest the remains of General George Washington."
All right, some interesting stuff. He's been moved. He was moved.
He was. Now, if you remember when we first started this series, we kind of said, Martha was not happy with him, and she had him buried outside her window so she could spit on his grave. There is no documentation of that.
Yeah. So is that a folklore?
It could be.
Could be.
It could be.
Speaking of which, if you want to know the paranormal claims of ghost stories and folklore, I'll put a link to that right here. Ding! We covered that because George Washington's not the only one that's been reported on Mount Vernon.
That's true.
Or at Mount Vernon. On Mount Vernon. No, at Mount Vernon.
Out Mount Vernon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's some other spirits that's there as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, personal experiences.
My personal experiences, I've had a lot of different personal experiences through the years because I went there as a child, I went there as an adult, I went there as an adult that was married that wanted to do the archaeology. So the picture, if you noticed on the Panic D website, that and some of the research photos, they involve a dig that's going on there, and I was like, I got to get in there because I love archaeological digs. And so I went over and I talked to the people about it and everything. And I told them how I moved all those 117 bodies, and they're like, "You did that? What kind of, And I'm like, I was a volunteer. You want me to volunteer? And,
Yeah.
So I was chomping at the bit to do that. Walking through the house is just amazing. You knew that the first president of the United States, he walked those same halls. He had that building built that way. It's just it's awe-inspiring. And then you go into the basement where they won't let you take pictures because of movies.
They won't let you in the basement unless you take a special tour. Of course we did.
Of course we did.
The National Treasure Tour, which was recorded down in there, and due to copyright.
Which I really don't understand copyright. This was the president's house. Yeah. He owns the copyright, doesn't he?
Yeah, but it was pretty cool seeing some of those locations that were in the movie down in the basement.
Absolutely. And then when you walk onto to the other parts where the vaults are and the slave burial ground, it's different.
Yeah, very different. We've been to a lot of presidential properties. I'm at Monticello and Montpelier and some of the other ones.
Ashland Highlands.
Yeah. Mount Vernon is very unique. It's like a small city, like a small little, not a city, but a little town. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff everywhere, and every time you keep going down the path, you oh, wow, it's something different. My personal experience, man, was it warm. I keep saying, oh yeah, it's in July. We go to the south in July and it's hot. But I'm telling you what, there at Mount Vernon, it was hot. It was really hot, which is why his, gardens did so well. It was hot in the summers. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but walking on them trails and those paths, that heat beating up, and Marianne, we come around the corner and I'm like spent for the day. I'm ready to go. Actually, I believe I was saying I'm ready to go back to the hotel and jump in the pool because I was like melting. Went through I don't know how many bottles of water. You're like, oh, archaeological dig, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go sit underneath this tree over here and wait for you to be done. But I think that might be in some of our pictures, and you'll see I was just drenched.
Yeah.
That was a hot one.
It was. It was warm.
Was. And it's on the bank of the Potomac River, so I just wanted to rip off my clothes and go jump in, but yeah, that wasn't happening.
Yeah, I don't think they would have appreciated that.
Paranormal experiences didn't really get that many because we couldn't record. We couldn't do any recordings or pictures and stuff inside the building. There's been reports around. I went through all of our pictures. I didn't see anything. So we really can't say paranormal wise we had an experience there. But and I don't know that we can actually go back and try because it is privately owned. It's not like I don't know. Yeah.
But possibilities of paranormal definitely exist.
Oh. Yeah, why would the place be haunted?
You can pretty much name it, right? Yeah. So we've got a slave burial ground where there's marked graves. Mm-hmm. You've got the president who, okay, I wanted to be buried in a new tomb. Okay, great. But you didn't make it happen for 30 years after I died, so he was probably a little restless at some point. All the other family...
His casket and stuff was disturbed because of, people taking pieces off of it.
And then, of course, the other burials in the old vault that were, destroyed, and they got new coffins and things too, and they were all moved. So you got a lot of moving of bodies around. You've got, of course, the Potomac River. Well,
that's a good point because this was former Native American grounds too.
It was.
So, did they disturb a Native American burial ground building and put in the gardens and things like that? Who knows? Mm-hmm. Who knows? So.
Plus, it's been in the family since the 1600s, right, all the way until well into the 1800s, and it was being passed from family member to family member. Women owners of property. Mm-hmm. So it's just there's just so much attachment of the family there as well, Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we covered everything for this location video. We changed things up a little bit. Again, I put those links where you could go see the history and all that other stuff. They're up over here. Beep, beep, beep. But anything else you would like to add to this?
I actually do have something I want to add to this.
Okay.
Right there at the end, I had of the burial information. We talked about the burial in this video. I did find some information stating that both North and South military had actually gone ahead and watched over the president's grave during the Civil War. And they actually carved their names and initials and things like that into the bricks of his burial chamber.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting too. And they said they didn't do it, for just to graffiti. They did it to say, look, I was here, I protected him, kind of thing. So that's kind of cool. Maybe even some of them came back to protect them as well.
It's possible.
After their deaths.
It's all possible, folks.
Yeah.
All right, till next time.
Thanks for watching.
And happy hunting. Let us know if you like this video by hitting that thumbs up. Also, if you'd like to see more videos from us in the future, support our channel by hitting that subscribe button and dinging that bell so you get notified the next time there's a video from Panic D Videos.
Thanks for watching.
Happy hunting.